Good afternoon, everyone. Cold enough for you? When my father moved to Boston from Guatemala, he spent his first paycheck on a winter coat, and I can see why, based on today's weather. My name is Jennifer DeLeon, and I'm a writer and an educator. I was born in Boston, and I grew up outside of Boston and currently live here. And I'm really excited to share my work with you today, work in progress. I'm also the editor of Wise Latinas, Writers on Higher Education, which is a collection of essays written by Latina writers reflecting on their college experiences. I also had the pleasure of being picked for One City, One Story, which was published in English and Spanish, and 30,000 copies were shared all over the city of Boston. So if you were at a Dunkin' Donuts, maybe you saw this when you were in line. So I'm here to tell you about my project in process, and it involves a very topical subject, walls, the wall, or el muro in Spanish. What we talk about when we talk about walls. I just want to show you a couple examples throughout history, right? The Berlin Wall, Greece's wall along the Turkish border, Hungary's wall along the Serbian border, and the US-Mexico border wall. So there are several walls. I could have spent the entire time here showing you, unfortunately, examples of walls throughout history. But I'm also interested in the concept of the wall, the larger concept, and what it means to have these invisible and visible barriers in our lives, and how story in particular can really kind of help move through that and build bridges in place of these walls. So there's gender, race, class, school zone, zip code, income. There are so many other barriers that even when you are in a designated area, you might still have these invisible walls. Boston has a deep history, from the Revolutionary War to the Red Sox. It's considered the political, commercial, financial, religious, and educational center of the New England region. But Boston also has a history of segregation, particularly when it comes to education, housing, culture, and more. I'm really interested in examining ways in which education is both a bridge, but also a way that it has a multitude of walls. My own experience growing up, being born in Jamaica Plain, and then moving to the suburbs, feeling like an anomaly in my honors classes, often being the only Latina in my college classroom, never really having teachers that looked like me or represented the culture that I was from, and what it means to go outside of your community to seek a quote-unquote better education. So I'm very interested in MECO, which is everybody familiar with MECO? It's the program that buses inner city students to suburbs, and there's a lot more to say about that, but I just want to tell you a little bit about Jamaica Plain, which is, again, where I was born and where my parents moved to when they immigrated here from Guatemala. This is just a visual to show you the changes that have been occurring in Jamaica Plain. This is a popular supermarket, High-Low Foods, that no longer exists. It's now Whole Foods. And I have memories of going to High-Low Foods with my grandmother and saying, like, I just want one chocolate, you know, and she would say, like, no, no, no. And now at Whole Foods, bless you, I can buy as many chocolates as I want. But Jamaica Plain is a really special place. It's very diverse, but again, it's very segregated. There are people who are living next door to each other, but maybe not always communicating with one another. So my proposal is to create an exploration of walls and their impact on communities and the power of story to break through them. What will the products be? I'm envisioning a reinterpretation of walls, so a rotating exhibit tentatively titled What We Talk About When We Talk About Walls. And I want these to be testimonies, artwork, visuals. I'm working currently with the Margarita Muniz Academy in Jamaica Plain, and they are the only dual language high school in Boston Public Schools. And we're doing some amazing brainstorming, and we hope to have this exhibit at Curtis Hall. Here are some teens who are in Jamaica Plain. I also want to thank, at this point, Noel from the BCYF Center, who's been a huge help, and these students who are so special to me. I'm going to end by reading just a short scene from my YA novel, Don't Ask Me Where I'm From. It tells the story of Liliana Cruz, who's a 15-year-old living in Jamaica Plain, and she's a part of the MECO program, and she is going through a tough time. So this is a scene where she's in her new high school, which is mostly affluent, white, and she's in her first week of school. The next day in history, we started a new unit on Central American immigration. The teacher, Mr. Phelps, had us begin by having a class debate. The following sentence was projected onto the screen from his computer. The United States federal government should substantially increase its legal protection of economic migrants in the United States. All I could hear was the hot hum of the projector. Then he tapped a button on his laptop, and there, a picture of Donald Trump wearing a blue suit and red tie speaking into a microphone. A speech bubble coming from his head read, "When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems." After that, Mr. Phelps played a short clip from a documentary about child migrants trying to flee Central America to the Mexican-US border by climbing cargo trains that inch their way up through Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Mexico. In the clip, two teenage boys, 13 and 14, are sitting on top of a massive moving train, the wind in their hair, the sun in their eyes, as they try desperately to hang on tight before the train blasts through a tunnel in a mountain. The clip ends right before the train moves into the darkness. The class moans. Someone says, "Oh, come on, you can't do that. Mister, play the rest of the video." Mr. Phelps looks smug, like his unit hook worked. Well, the class was interested, invested, sitting up and ready to learn something new. Only I slouched in my seat, crossed my legs, and wished I could disappear. I knew more about this topic than I wish I had. The debate began. Hands flew up left and right. One kid said, "Look, we're all immigrants. Truthfully, we should just give the country back to the Native Americans." Another kid said, "Well, lots of immigrants just bring trouble. It's not fair to our country." Next kid, "Well, I'm not against immigrants or whatever, but they should come educated and without any diseases." If I slouched anymore, I'd likely have fallen out of my seat. Next kid, "You can't deny people their human rights. I mean, especially kids. They go through all that trouble to get here, and then what? We're just gonna send them back?" Then Mr. Phelps did the meanest thing He called on me next. "Miss Cruz, do you have anything to add to the discussion?" I wanted to roll my eyes, tell him off. Obviously, if I had something to say, I would have raised my hand hello. "No," I said. "You sure?" Ugh, he was so aggy. I nodded, stared at the projector bulb for as long as I could stand it before my eyes burned. I knew everyone was staring at me. I could feel it. Mr. Phelps squatted beside my desk like he was my coach. He whispered, "Liliana, the class might seem hard now, but stick with it." Then he stood up and clicked to the next screen. I wanted to throw up. Instead, I just put my hood on and crossed my arms. Hard? I was used to doing things that were hard, like 2 weeks worth of laundry in one day because mom never left the couch anymore, like chugging a whole can of Arizona iced tea before the teacher made me throw it in the trash, like writing a monologue in the perspective of Juliet 10 years after Romeo, like standing over my little brothers until they brushed their teeth and flossed. But explaining my perspective on immigration to a bunch of white kids in a rich school, that wasn't hard. Nah, that was just annoying. Thank you.